My son and his wife left for a cruise, trusting me to watch over my 8-year-old grandson. He had never spoken a single word since the day he was born. The moment the front door closed behind them, everything changed. The boy froze, lifted his head and looked straight into my eyes. Then, in a clear and steady voice, he said, "Grandpa, please don't drink that." Cold shock ripped through my body. In one heartbeat, everything I believed about my life shattered. I had once been a soldier. I had survived war, but nothing had prepared me for this moment. At 68 years old, after 2 tours in Vietnam and losing my wife 4 years earlier, I believed I understood fear. I was wrong. Real fear sounds like an 8-year-old child, silent since birth, warning you that someone wants you dead. That Thursday morning, just after 9, my son Daniel pulled into my driveway. His dark blue sedan reflected the pale October sunlight. His wife Evelyn stepped out first, perfect hair, expensive sunglasses resting casually on her head. "Thanks again for helping out, Dad," Daniel said as he lifted their bags from the trunk. 4-day Caribbean cruise, anniversary trip. Their son Noah climbed out next. He was small for his age, clutching the worn stuffed elephant he'd carried everywhere since he was 2. Doctors had labeled him nonverbal, said he would likely never speak. Still, when Noah looked at you with those deep brown eyes, it always felt like he understood far more than anyone realized. Inside my kitchen, Evelyn placed a small box carefully on the counter. "Walter," she said, "I made your special chamomile tea, the one that helps you rest." I frowned slightly. I didn't remember mentioning sleep problems. "It's important you drink it twice a day," she continued, lining the packets up neatly. "Morning and night. I've prepared enough for the entire time we're gone. At your age, routine matters." For just a split second, something cold passed through her expression, sharp and calculated. Then it vanished. Old instincts stirred inside me, the kind you develop when you've lived in hostile territory. But this was family, tea. I pushed the feeling aside. "We should head out," Daniel said from the doorway. He kissed Noah's forehead, but his eyes avoided his son's face. He couldn't quite bring himself to look. "Be good for Grandpa," Evelyn said to Noah. Her voice was flat. "Remember what we talked about." Noah didn't answer. He never did. Moments later, they were gone. I stood on the porch holding Noah's hand, watching the car disappear down Maple Street. The air was cool, the leaves just beginning to turn. It should have felt calm. The door closed behind us. Suddenly, Noah grabbed my wrist hard, urgent. He dropped his elephant and pointed toward the kitchen, toward the tea box. His entire body trembled. I knelt in front of him. "What's wrong, buddy?" His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. 8 years of silence pressed behind his eyes. Then the words came. "Grandpa," he whispered, his voice rough but unmistakably clear. "Don't drink the tea. Mom put something bad in it." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. My knees nearly gave out. "Did you just speak?" I asked, barely able to breathe. He clutched my shirt, panic written across his face. "Please," he said, his voice breaking, "please don't drink it." My grandson, silent since birth, had just warned me about my own death. And I was beginning to realize this was only the start of what he knew. "Sit down, kiddo," I said softly, pulling a chair out for him. I filled 2 glasses with water and slid one across the table. "Water only, not the tea, never that tea again." I leaned closer. "I need you to tell me everything, from the very beginning." Noah's voice was still unsteady, like something unused for years, but the words themselves were calm, deliberate. "I was 5, he said, staring at his hands. "I was at the doctor with Mom. I saw a toy I liked and I said, 'Mama.' I didn't think about it, just one word. The doctor heard me." I stayed silent, my teeth clenched. "That night," he continued, his voice dropping, "Mom came into my room after Dad fell asleep. She told me if I ever spoke again without her permission, she'd send me to a special hospital. My heart slammed against my ribs. She said I'd never see you or Dad again. She said they give kids injections there, shots that make them sleep forever. 5 years old, threatened with death for saying a single word. I was terrified, Grandpa, Noah whispered, finally lifting his eyes to mine. So I stopped talking to everyone about everything. I forced my voice to stay calm, even as something violent burned in my chest. How long have you been able to understand what's going on around you? Always, he said simply. I taught myself how to read when I was 6, from TV captions, from your books when you left them lying around. This child hadn't been empty or unaware. He'd been trapped, watching, learning, absorbing everything. I listen when adults talk, he went on. People think I don't hear because I don't speak, but I hear everything. I swallowed hard. What did you hear about the tea? 6 months ago, he said, Mom was on the phone in her bedroom. I was supposed to be asleep. She was talking about medicine, about making you confused, about making sure you wouldn't wake up. His voice broke for the first time. That's when I started looking for proof. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. My daughter-in-law hadn't just acted on impulse. She'd been planning this, carefully, for at least half a year. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, though I already knew. She watches everything, Noah said quietly. Where I go, what I do, every time you visit. His fingers twisted together. This week was my first chance, when they left, when I knew we'd be alone and she couldn't stop me. 4 days, that was all we had before they returned, before Evelyn realized her plan had failed. Grandpa, Noah said, and something in his tone snapped my full attention to him. I didn't just hear things. I leaned forward. What do you mean? I kept papers, he said, evidence. I hid them where Mom would never look. My pulse pounded. What kind of papers? Her research, he replied, about medications for elderly people, about making healthy people look sick, about, he hesitated then finished, about making sure people don't wake up. I stared at him in disbelief. My 8-year-old grandson had been collecting information like a trained operative, quietly, patiently, for months, maybe longer. There's more, he added softly. There are papers about you too, Noah said softly, about why she hates you so much. My mind flashed back to Daniel's inability to meet his own son's eyes, to the flat, emotionless way Evelyn spoke to him. This wasn't simple cruelty. There were layers here, dark ones I hadn't even started to peel back. Noah's small hand tightened around mine. They're in my room, Grandpa. Everything she's been planning. Do you want to see? He led me upstairs, past the framed photos lining the hallway, pictures from another life. Daniel as a boy, my late wife Helen smiling among her flowers, Noah as a baby. Ordinary family memories, innocent on the surface, hiding something decayed beneath. Noah's bedroom still had the dinosaur wallpaper I'd helped put up when he was 4. I remembered thinking the bright colors might encourage him to speak. Now I understood the truth. He had been communicating the entire time, just silently. He didn't go to his dresser. Instead, Noah knelt beside his wooden bed and slipped his fingers into a narrow gap beneath a loose floorboard, one he'd clearly pried up long ago. Mom thinks I don't understand anything, he whispered. She used to leave these papers on her desk when it was just the two of us at home. She'd make me stand there and watch her work because she knew I couldn't tell anyone. My chest tightened. One time she got an emergency call and forgot to take a yellow envelope with her into the bathroom. I took it. I knew if I took everything, she'd notice. So I only took the most important pages and hid them here. He pulled out a thin stack of papers, folded carefully to fit the narrow space. She tore the house apart looking for them, Noah said. Fear and quiet pride flickered together in his eyes. She even screamed at Dad for losing her documents, but she never suspected me. He swallowed. She calls me a broken decoration in this house. My hands shook as I unfolded the papers. The first document was printed from a medical website. Signs of elder abuse and neglect. Sections were highlighted in yellow. Progressive memory loss. Increased confusion and disorientation. Changes in sleep patterns. Every symptom I'd been dealing with for the past 2 years. The second document made my stomach twist. Medication interactions in elderly patients. The margins were filled with Evelyn's handwriting, calculations, dosage notes, precise timing instructions designed to avoid detection. But it was the third document that made the truth unavoidable. A set of handwritten progress notes. At the top, neatly written in Evelyn's careful script, was the title, WB Timeline. And I knew this wasn't theory. This was a plan. My initials, my life reduced to a cold experiment on paper. March 2024, first dose administered, 1 mg lorazepam. Subject reports fatigue, attributes symptoms to normal aging. June 2024, increased to 2 mg plus diphenhydramine, memory lapses observed. September 2024, added zolpidem, desired confusion patterns achieved. I read that line twice. Desired confusion patterns. She had been monitoring my decline like a lab trial, adjusting doses, observing results, refining the formula until it gave her exactly what she wanted. Then I reached the final entry. October 10, 2024. Prepared concentrated doses for cruise week. Calculated amount should ensure permanent resolution within 48-72 hours of administration. My hand trembled. Permanent resolution. That was how she described killing me. No emotion, no hesitation, just the closing of a file. Grandpa, Noah said softly, there's one more thing about why she hates you so much. He reached back into the floorboard and pulled out one last sheet, hidden at the very bottom. DNA paternity test results. Daniel Bennett. Probability of paternity, 0%. The room spun. I read it again. 0%. I found it 2 years ago, Noah whispered, tears spilling down his cheeks. I'm not really your grandson, not by blood, that's why, Mom. I dropped the papers and pulled him into my arms so hard he gasped. Stop, I said, my voice rough. Listen to me. I held him at arm's length so he could see my face, so he could see the truth in it. Blood doesn't make family. Love does, honor does. I gripped his shoulders. You are my grandson. That will never change, ever. Noah buried his face against my shoulder and finally cried. 8 years of silence and terror pouring out all at once. I held him, this brave child who had been protecting both of us the only way he knew how. When his breathing finally steadied, we sat together on the edge of his small bed. The papers lay scattered across the floor like shrapnel, evidence of a 2-year plan to erase me. Evelyn had been careful, precise. She'd thought of everything. Everything except the fact that Noah could read. Didn't know he'd been watching, learning, quietly stealing proof right under her nose. Didn't know her intended victim had survived worse enemies in the jungles of Southeast Asia. I held that boy close while something cold and relentless settled into my bones. She thought she'd planned perfectly. She had no idea we were about to turn her own work against her. Downstairs, I spread the documents across my kitchen table like battle maps. Noah stood nearby, alert, waiting. This is war, I said. 3 phases. First, medical proof. We document everything. Second, we get her to talk. Noah nodded, sitting straighter, focused. At 3:15, I said, I'm calling Dr. Alan Price. I've known him 15 years. I picked up the phone. Alan, I need emergency blood work today. No questions. How fast can you get here? 30 minutes, he said. By 4 o'clock, a nurse was drawing blood. Alan watched from the doorway, concern written on his face, but he didn't push. Results by morning, he said. By 5 we were back home. Noah sat at the table, studying the papers like strategy notes. She'll call tonight, I told him. Second day check-in, right? He nodded. She needs to believe her plan is working. I need to convince her I'm getting worse, I told Noah, confused, fatting. We spent the next hour practicing. I rehearsed slurring my words, repeating myself, losing my train of thought, forgetting names, forgetting time. Noah corrected me when it wasn't believable enough. Too sharp, he said once. You wouldn't remember that. I nodded. Sometimes looking weak is the strongest position, I explained. You let the enemy think they've won, then you strike from behind. The phone rang at exactly 8:00 p.m. Predictable. Evelyn, I answered, letting my voice sag with exhaustion. Oh, hello, dear. Walter, how are you feeling? She asked smoothly. And how's Noah? I waited too long before answering. Noah, yes, good boy, very quiet. Have you been eating properly? I think so, I said slowly, though I can't remember if I fed the boy lunch today, did I? Real confusion slipped into my voice. And this morning, I couldn't find my wallet. Across the table, Noah gave me a small thumbs up. Oh my, Evelyn said. I heard the satisfaction she tried and failed to hide. That does sound worrying. I've been so tired, I continued. I keep thinking I see Helen around the house. I let my words blur together. She was in the garden yesterday, or maybe that was, what day is it? It's Thursday, Walter, she said gently. Thursday evening. Thursday, I repeated slowly. Right, Thursday. There was a pause. Have you been drinking your tea? Her tone sharpened. Tea, I said. Yes, helps me sleep. I sleep so much now. I slurred deliberately. Is it supposed to make me this tired? That's completely normal, she replied. At your age, your body needs more rest. She talked about memory care facilities, about professional supervision, about discussing my options when they returned. I made vague, agreeable sounds, played the role of a man too confused to understand what was being decided for him. When the call ended, I dropped the act instantly. Noah stared at me, wide-eyed. She believed it, he said, completely. You stayed silent for 8 years, I replied. I can act confused for 2 days. I checked the calendar. Thursday night, they'd be back Sunday afternoon. 48 hours to finish setting the trap. I'd run operations with tighter timelines in Vietnam, but back then I was fighting for objectives I barely understood. This time I was fighting for family. Friday morning at 9:00, Dr. Alan Price called. Walter, he said gravely, your blood work confirmed everything. I closed my eyes. Lorazepam, diphenhydramine, zolpidem, none of it prescribed. The levels were dangerously high. I felt the weight of it settle into my bones. Another week at those concentrations, he continued, and you would have suffered irreversible cognitive damage, or worse. Hearing it from a doctor made it real in a way the notes hadn't. I know who did it, Alan, I said. I need 24 hours to handle this my way. You need to call the police immediately, he warned. By Monday, this will be in court. I promise, I said, but give me 1 more day. Silence. Then he sighed, 24 hours, not a minute more. At 11, I called Samuel Harper, my lawyer of 15 years. Sam, I asked, if I record someone without their knowledge in Ohio, can it be used in court? A pause. Yes, he said. Ohio is a one-party consent state. As long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal. Why? I'll need you Sunday evening, around 6. By 2 that afternoon, Noah and I were walking into the electronics store on High Street. I bought a digital voice recorder, small enough to conceal but powerful enough to capture every word. Professional grade. We tested it in the parking lot. Noah stood 15 feet away and spoke in a normal tone. When I played it back, every syllable came through sharp and unmistakable. That evening, sitting at my kitchen table, I laid out the plan piece by piece. The recorder would be hidden behind my war history books on the living room shelf. Noah would sit on the floor and play quietly, silent and overlooked, exactly how Evelyn expected him to be. When the moment came, when she said enough to damn herself, he would stand up, walk to the shelf, remove the recorder and speak. Noah's hands twisted together. "What if I'm too scared?" he asked. "What if I can't do it?" I placed my hands over his. "You've been brave for 8 years, soldier," I said. "I'm only asking for one more day." Saturday morning, we tested the recorder again and again, checked the batteries, practiced placement until Noah could retrieve it smoothly, without hesitation. By afternoon, we ran full rehearsals. I practiced confusion, slurred speech, repeated thoughts, losing track of sentences. Noah practiced staying perfectly still and silent. Then we switched. "I can talk," Noah said, his voice growing stronger with each repetition. "I've always been able to talk. Mom just made me afraid." "Louder," I coached. "Look straight at them, every word matters." We rehearsed 5 times until his voice rang clear and steady. By evening, Noah barely touched his dinner. His nerves had tied his stomach in knots. I told him stories from Vietnam, about soldiers younger than Daniel who'd found courage they never knew they had. At bedtime, Noah looked up at me from his pillow. "Grandpa, what if everything goes wrong tomorrow?" "Then we adapt," I said, "but it won't. The truth is on our side and we have proof." Noah drifted into an uneasy sleep. I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my chair, staring at Helen's photograph on the mantel, thinking about family and betrayal. Tomorrow, Daniel and Evelyn would walk straight into an ambush. They just didn't know it yet. Sunday afternoon at exactly 2:00, I heard Daniel's car pull into the driveway. That familiar sound triggered something I hadn't felt since 1968, the calm, razor-sharp focus before contact. Noah and I exchanged a single glance across the living room. His brown eyes were steady, ready. We'd rehearsed this moment for 2 straight days. I settled into my armchair, shoulders slumped, hair uncombed, shirt buttoned unevenly, one side hanging lower than the other. I'd even skipped shaving. The mirror that morning had shown me exactly what Evelyn wanted to see. A man coming apart. Noah sat on the floor near my feet, action figures arranged in a loose circle. He gave me the slightest nod, then went completely still. Silent. Invisible. Back into the role he'd been forced to play for 8 long years. The front door opened. "Walter, we're home," Evelyn's voice called out, bright, rehearsed. She appeared in the living room doorway, suntanned from 4 days in the Caribbean. Her eyes swept over me, cataloging every detail of my appearance. For a brief moment, irritation flashed across her face, as if she'd expected to find me already gone, already rushed to a hospital. Then she rearranged her expression into concern. "Oh, Walter, you poor thing," Evelyn said softly. "You look worn out. Have you been taking care of yourself?" I let my eyes drift, as if focusing took effort. "Evelyn, you're back," I murmured. "Was it? How long were you gone?" 4 days, Walter," she said gently. "Just 4 days." 4 days, I repeated slowly. "Right, 4 days." I let confusion settle across my face. "I've been so tired," I added. "Can't remember if Noah ate breakfast today or was that yesterday." Daniel stepped in behind her, hauling their luggage. The moment he saw me, the color drained from his face. "Dad," he said quietly, tension thick in his voice, "are you okay?" Evelyn shot him a sharp look, quick and cutting, then turned back to me with a smile that was far too sweet. "He's just exhausted, Daniel," she said smoothly. "At his age, this kind of thing happens naturally." She lowered herself onto the couch like she belonged there, relaxed, confident. "Walter," she continued, "have you been drinking your tea, the special blend I prepared for you?" I nodded vaguely. "Tea, yes, the tea helps," I said. "I sleep so much now, all the time, really." "That's wonderful," she replied, unable to hide the satisfaction in her voice. "That's exactly what your body needs." She turned to Daniel. "See, he's declining faster than we expected. We really need to have that conversation we've been avoiding." Daniel hesitated. "Evelyn, maybe we should." "Daniel," she cut in sharply, "final. Your father needs help, professional help." She faced me again, and this time the mask slipped just enough for me to see what lived underneath. "Walter," she said calmly, "how would you feel about a place where nurses could keep an eye on you, somewhere safe, somewhere you wouldn't have to worry about anything?" I let my voice shrink. "I don't want to be trouble," I said, "a burden to you kids." "You're not a burden," she replied. The words sounded right, the tone did not. "But nature has its way. Some people your age simply fade faster than others, especially when they're not as sharp as they once were." She was warming to it now, growing bolder. "A memory care facility would be best," she continued, "for everyone. Then we could properly manage your affairs." Daniel shifted uncomfortably near the doorway. "Evelyn." She ignored him completely. "The house," she went on, "the finances, all those complicated things you don't need to concern yourself with anymore." She almost sounded pleased. "Everything will be much simpler once the right arrangements are made." Behind the row of war history books on my shelf, the recorder captured every word, every calculation, every admission, every piece of proof we needed. I stayed where I was, slumped, confused, the perfect victim, letting her believe she'd already won. That was when Noah stood up, slowly, carefully, and instead of walking toward me, he walked toward the bookshelf. Evelyn's voice stopped in the middle of a sentence. Noah walked calmly to the bookshelf. He reached behind the old war volumes, pulled out the digital recorder, turned to face his mother, and spoke. "This has been recording since the moment you walked in." The color drained from Evelyn's face. "And I can talk," Noah continued, his voice steady and clear. "I always could." The room fell into dead silence. Evelyn's mouth opened. "That's impossible, you're mute, the doctors." "The doctors you lied to," Noah said. "I stayed silent because you said you'd hurt Grandpa if I ever spoke." Daniel stared at his son, frozen. You can really." I stood up, letting the act fall away completely. "He's been able to speak his entire life," I said flatly, "just like I've been perfectly lucid for the last 5 days." Evelyn stumbled back a step. "You're not confused," she whispered. "Not at all." "Funny what happens when your drug tea stops," I replied. "Clarity comes back fast." "I don't know what you think you're accusing me of." "No," I cut her off. I pulled the manila folder from beside my chair. "We have everything," I said. "Your research, your dosage notes, your progress records." I opened it and read aloud. October 10th. Prepared concentrated doses for cruise week. Permanent resolution within 48 to 72 hours. I looked straight at her. "That's how you described killing me." Daniel's face went ashen. "Dad, no, she wouldn't." "She has been poisoning me for 2 years," I said. "Lorazepam, diphenhydramine, zolpidem. Dr. Alan Price ran a full blood panel. Every bit of it is documented." I tapped the recorder. "And everything you said today was captured." I reached into the folder again. "But you want to know the worst part." I pulled out the final page and held it up. "The DNA test." Evelyn's eyes widened. Noah is Daniel's biological son. You trapped my boy into raising another man's child. Daniel's expression told me he already knew. Noah stepped forward. I found it 2 years ago, he said quietly. I know I'm not really a Bennett. I turned to him immediately. You are a Bennett, I said firmly. Blood doesn't make family, honor does. Evelyn's face twisted with rage. That bastard ruined everything, she spat. I never wanted him. The moment the words left her mouth, she realized what she'd admitted. And you were supposed to fade away quietly, she hissed. The tea was working until... She lunged toward Noah. If you just stayed silent. I moved on instinct, stepped between them, caught her wrist mid-strike. Touch that boy, I said evenly, and it will be the last thing you ever do. She struggled against my grip. Let go, he isn't even your real grandson. I held her with the same steady strength I'd once used to carry a rifle through jungle heat decades ago. That child has more honor than you'll have in 10 lifetimes. I looked at Noah. Call 911, soldier. Attempted grievous bodily harm, elder abuse. Noah ran for the kitchen phone. Daniel collapsed into a chair. Dad, I'm sorry, he said brokenly. I didn't think she'd actually do it. I thought it was just talk. You knew enough, I said. You knew about the boy, you knew something was wrong, and you chose silence. She threatened divorce, he whispered, to take everything. I was trapped. So you let her silence your son for 8 years, I said, and poison your father. That makes you complicit. From the kitchen, Noah called out, They're coming, Grandpa, 5 minutes. Sirens began to rise in the distance. Evelyn stopped fighting when she heard them. Noah stood behind me, his hand gripping my shirt. We had survived. But seeing my own son crumpled in that chair, that hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. The sirens grew closer. Sunday evening, police officers led Evelyn out in handcuffs. She screamed that I had manipulated Noah, that the boy was unstable, that I was senile. The officers didn't argue. They had already heard the recording. Daniel was placed in a separate car for questioning. Daniel's face was gray, hollowed out. Over the next 3 days, detectives interviewed Noah and me separately. Noah answered every question in his calm, steady voice. He explained the threats made when he was 5, the 8 years of enforced silence, and the evidence he had quietly collected. At the prosecutor's request, Dr. Emily Watson evaluated Noah. Her report confirmed exceptionally high intelligence. The prolonged silence, she concluded, was the result of sustained psychological abuse. Most importantly, she certified Noah as a credible and reliable witness. Dr. Alan Price testified about my blood work. The levels of lorazepam, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem in my system had been dangerously high. Another week at those levels, he told the court, and Mr. Bennett would likely have suffered irreversible cognitive damage or death. Samuel Harper presented the evidence. The recorded confession, the handwritten progress notes, the DNA report establishing motive, and the tea packets recovered from my kitchen. Lab analysis confirmed the packets contained the same substances found in my blood. Evelyn's defense claimed I had planted evidence. They suggested Noah had been coached. They even tried to argue the recording had been altered. But they could not explain the progress notes in Evelyn's handwriting. They could not explain the drugs in the tea she herself had prepared. And they could not explain her own voice, cold, precise, calculating, captured on the recording. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge sentenced Evelyn to 15 years in prison for attempted grievous bodily harm, elder abuse, and child endangerment. Daniel Bennett received 5 years of probation. He had cooperated fully and expressed genuine remorse, but the judge was clear. His silence had enabled 8 years of abuse. The custody hearing was brief. Daniel appeared voluntarily. "I relinquish all parental rights," he told the court. "Noah deserves better. My father has been more of a parent to him than I ever was." The judge granted me full legal guardianship. A month later, I visited Daniel at the county jail. He looked 10 years older. "How is he?" Daniel asked quietly. "Noah's talking nonstop," I said, "thriving." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "That's good. That's really good, Dad. I was weak. I know that doesn't excuse anything." "No," I said. "It doesn't. You let her hurt that boy for 8 years. You let her poison me. You were a victim at first, but then you became complicit." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'll live with that forever," he said. "But can you tell him I love him, even though I failed him?" I was silent for a long moment. "I'll tell him," I said finally. "Whether he forgives you, that will be his choice." Daniel closed his eyes. "Thank you, Dad, for being strong when I couldn't be." I left without looking back. I would not return. 6 months later, as spring gave way to early summer, Noah and I had built something I thought I'd lost when Helen passed: a family. Not bound by blood, but by choice and survival. There's a difference between surviving and living. Noah taught me that. One Saturday morning in late April, we sat on the dock at the local reservoir, fishing lines cast into water reflecting a pale blue sky. The air smelled of fresh grass and new beginnings. "My science presentation on sound waves got the highest grade in the class," Noah said, his voice animated. "Mrs. Brooks said it was the best she's ever seen from a 3rd grader." I smiled. "Not surprised, soldier. You're making up for lost time with that voice." "Dr. Watson says I'm progressing really well," he added. "She thinks I might be ready to skip ahead to 4th grade next year." "Your grandmother would have been proud," I said quietly. "The Bennetts have always been sharp." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to birdsong and the gentle lap of water. "Grandpa," Noah said softly, "do you ever think about my biological father?" I didn't hesitate. "No," I said, "because I'm looking at my grandson right now." I met his eyes. "We may not share blood, but we share something stronger than blood. Blood is an accident of birth. Family is who you're willing to fight for. We fought for each other. That made us family in the truest sense." Noah fell quiet for a moment, then looked up at me. "Can I still be a Bennett?" I turned toward him fully. "Son, you earned that name," I said. "You showed more courage than most soldiers I ever served beside. You're a Bennett because you acted like one when it mattered most." His eyes lit up. "When I grow up," he said, "I want to be like Dr. Watson. I want to help kids who don't talk because they're too scared." My throat tightened. "You will do extraordinary things, Noah," I said. "You understand them in a way very few people ever could." He hesitated. "Do you really think I can?" "You survived 8 years of silence," I said, "and you saved both our lives. You can do anything." Just then his fishing rod bent sharply. "I've got something," he shouted. We grabbed the rod together, working in sync as the line fought back, bowing the pole into a deep arc. "Easy," I coached. "Let it wear itself out." After a moment, a small bass broke the surface, flashing in the sunlight. Noah laughed pure, unrestrained joy, a sound I would never take for granted. We brought the fish close, and I showed him how to release it gently, supporting it in the water until it swam free. As we reset the lines, he asked softly, "Grandpa, do you think Dad will ever visit?" I considered it carefully. "I don't know," I said. "Your father has his own guilt to face, but we're okay, better than okay." Noah nodded. "Yeah, we are." The sun climbed higher. A light breeze rippled the water. Noah hummed quietly as he watched his line, an ordinary sound he'd been denied for 8 long years. "The Army taught me about duty. My son taught me about disappointment, but my grandson taught me the true meaning of family. Not who shares your blood, but who shares your battles. 2 weeks earlier, Noah had his first session with Dr. Watson. He talked about wanting to help other children someday. She told me later that his empathy and insight were remarkable, that trauma, when survived, can become strength. Daniel sent a letter from jail. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe Noah will want to read it someday. That choice can wait. At 68, I found my purpose again. Not as a soldier, not as a disappointed father, but as the grandfather of a boy who found his voice and saved both our lives. Some families are born. Ours was forged in battle. And that makes it unbreakable. Looking back, there's one truth I won't ignore anymore. I missed the signs. I dismissed my instincts. I trusted when I should have questioned. If something feels wrong with someone you love, an elderly parent, a quiet child, don't ignore it. Don't wait for proof to land in your hands. Pay attention, ask questions, act. Because silence can hide unimaginable harm. And sometimes, the bravest voice in the room belongs to the one everyone believes cannot speak. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If Noah's courage and our journey touched you, don't forget to like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes the bravest battles are fought quietly, at home, behind closed doors. And if you want to hear more stories of truth, courage, and justice, stories that shine a light on the darkest deceptions, subscribe to our channel, Justice After Dark. Stay vigilant, stay brave, and always choose love over silence.